Well, the National Union of Metalworkers are calling the one-day stay-away at Medupi, saying that repeated attempts have failed to address issues around accommodation and bonuses. Numsa also says it's alarmed and dismayed by the recent developments at Eskom. To discuss, we're now joined by Numsa's General Secretary, Irvin Jim. Thank you for joining us, Irvin. Let's start with Medupi. Now, the question is, the country is in a vulnerable position. Eskom is very vulnerable at the moment. Is this a real issue, or in any way an exploitation of where we are in terms of energy at the moment?
Well, we wish Eskom was vulnerable and that those who are in the position to make sure that it's sorted out, they were acting as such. Unfortunately, we have not seen that. We've seen recklessness, clumsy arrangement by both the board and the minister in suspending key executives who were supposed to be fixing Eskom.
Irvin, let's start with Medupi, if you don't mind. The one-day stay-away called on a day when Eskom was just besieged. Let's talk about that specific issue.
I do want to say that, you know, it's almost like at the back of global crisis, everybody says we are in a crisis. Workers have been in a crisis at Medupi for some time. I mean, those workers, when they arrived there, they were promised by both Eskom and the contractors that them staying in hostels as we know it, packed places to stay, it was a temporary arrangement. They were going to be given proper permanent places that have got proper infrastructure that resemble workers' dignity. It's not for the first time that we have a mega project in Kucha, in Port Elizabeth. We had the similar arrangement where houses were built for workers. What prompted this is unilateralism of Eskom, where basically black workers have been pushed out of those particular houses, thrown back into hostels, and it meant to workers who were promised that within no time you will be out of the hostel, that indeed this was a permanent arrangement. Secondly, workers basically receive transport allowance, and this transport allowance get paid only 6 times in a year. And workers have been saying in negotiations, they didn't just went on a wildcat. They have mandated shop stewards to say, listen, we want this transport allowance to be paid every month to us. Secondly, we see a situation where demop is basically taking place, and despite the fact that in the PLA agreement, there was a promise that there will be, when Medupi is finished, workers will be given a completion bonus. But slowly but surely, without consulting unions, without following the Labor Relations Act, workers are being basically demobbed and being thrown out of jobs without consulting any union.
So, Irvin, you're accusing Eskom of being reckless, of being racist. Have you received any response from them, and will workers return? What will happen at Medupi, which is so crucial for our power grid?
I'm separating issues. I'm saying I think the board, the minister, in suspending people who are supposed to be fixing Eskom with flimsy arrangement and appointing the chairperson, Mr. Tsotsi, who is not a Johnny come late, who should be investigated if an inquiry must take place, from where we stand. Indeed, there is a need for an inquiry, because we know very well at what point have we lost our competitive advantage on electricity. We're witnessing war room being pulled together, but I also think that it's high time that even to people who would lead war room, we need to check on whose interest, who's sitting in the war room, because we have witnessed the coal price basically shooting up. We don't want to have people who are getting into the war room appearing to be fixing Eskom when in fact they are fixing themselves. I mean, if you read the Business Day today, the fact that there is a revelation that basically this executive wanted to embark on an investigation, to do an audit, to basically investigate the procurement side of Eskom. Suddenly we woke up on the suspension, nobody was prior warned.
Well,
we smell a rat here.
Zola Tsotsi himself, the chairman, may be ousted now. Does that deepen the crisis, or would you welcome that?
Well, Zola Tsotsi has been there. We have been in the crisis. What we reject is the fact that he could be investigating himself. He can be a judge and the jury at the same time.
Back to Medupi, what's going to happen now after this one-day stay away and the various demands that you've put forward?
Well, we hope that Eskom would come very quick to the negotiations. There is no intention for workers, from what we understood this. This was a simple march to highlight the problem so that Eskom must take these workers very seriously. It's not nice to be staying under those conditions those workers live under. And therefore, we think that if Eskom leadership were to come on board, but we know that the leadership is suspended. We don't know who to talk to. There's chaos.
Irvin, final question for you. You've said that if load shedding continues now, you're going to call a national strike. The question again, we need workers on board to bring load shedding down. By all accounts, load shedding is helping the system not to keel over entirely. So is that a responsible call again?
We think that it's high time that we must take a stance on the anarchy that is taking place in this country. Almost all critical public institutions, SOEs, are basically being run down. We think that we can't continue to afford at the expense of workers. Load shedding basically crippled the economy. It destroyed the confidence into the economy. Workers get sent home, and when they are sent home, they are not being paid. We think that it's high time that we must take the side of the working class. This crisis can't be solved through the carcass of the working class and the poor.
All right, we have to leave it there. Thank you for your time. That was Numsa's Irvin Jim.